Call to order the curriculum. Starting with public to be heard on agenda items only. There's no to be heard. Move to accept the meeting minutes from the previous meeting.
Yeah, agreed.
There are no old business items to be discussed. We'll move it into new business. Start with the technology education program update.
Great, thank you. So we have some guests with us tonight. So I'm actually going to turn it over to Dr. Reinheimer. She'll introduce our teacher and department chair and Dr. Ash.
Good evening. I have Dr. Edwards with me and Mr. Marushak, who's our technology education department leader and also a teacher in that department. They are currently in a review this year, so we have been working to see what kind of updates we can do for students. So we do have a few things to share. We are looking to make some proactive and positive updates to our technology education courses that we offer. We would like to stay current with real world projects and allow our teachers the ability to maintain that currency, so to speak, in our curriculum. And we'd also like to navigate our students through the correct pathways as they go through our technology education courses. These are some other things we'd like to do as well. I don't want to read the slides to you, so.
It's being very slow tonight.
Oh, okay, I was
click
like,
and click. It's,
okay. I could read them. So we are looking to make some changes to our Project Lead the Way that we offer. We currently offer 4 Project Lead the Way courses, which I do have on the next slide just to kind of parse out what we do offer. We have found that over the years, Project Lead the Way has had some poor and slow customer service, that they make very sudden and expensive changes to their courses that we currently offer. And it makes it difficult to kind of keep pace with that and do it justice like we're supposed to. The overwhelming consensus, I think, is that also the projects do not stay current. And it's very hard to, you can't really deviate from that because we're working within a package program with Project Lead the Way. So the 4 courses that we offer are, okay. Thank you. So we offer Intro to Engineering Honors, and if you have any questions, specific questions about these that I can't answer, that's why I do have Mr. Marushak here. Principles of Engineering, Digital Electronics, and Civil Engineering and Architecture. Inherently, there's nothing within these classes that we don't like. We just do not like the prepackaged lack of staying current that goes along with it. Do you agree with that? Okay. So in working with the department, we are proposing to kind of shift to a teacher-made, but staying relatively close to the original intent, and have these changes occur for our Project Lead the Way courses. So I framed it so that it's the course and then what it's replacing, so that you can kind of see the one-to-one correspondence there. So Honors Engineering Design major, which would be offered in 9 through 12, would be replacing the IED course.
Mm-hmm.
Intro to
Engineering Design, yes. Honors Fundamentals of Mechanical Engineering would replace the Principles of Engineering. Honors Digital Electronics 1 major would replace the CEA course.
Civil Engineering and Architecture.
Okay, that's a quiz. And Honors Digital Electronics 2 major would replace the DE course. So again, staying within the vibe, so to speak, of the courses, but making sure that we are not beholden to the expensive changes, the sudden changes, the platform change. Like some of the stuff is a little concerning how quickly they do that. The poor customer service. And then not a Project Lead the Way course, but CAD for Engineering minor would replace Tech Systems 2. It would basically be focusing in on that and allowing students that opportunity to get that CAD experience.
Are they, the new courses, considered part of Project Lead the Way?
No.
But, so these are now ours?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Great.
Along those same lines, what are we doing to support the fact that we're now like designing our own courses and we'll have to maintain them versus Project Lead the Way?
So the experience that our I was looking really close. The experience that our teachers have do make it possible to do this and to do it well. And to be able to, and plus there's, when it comes to some of the higher level things that are involved in this, most of the things are free for education
Great.
So when would that writing take place?
this year.
throughout the school year?
Yep.
So is this an additional, we pay them additionally to do?
So they're in a curriculum review this year. That's why we chose to begin this process this year. So they would take advantage of our in-service days, curriculum instruction days. And anytime courses are in review, we do have some additional days that we allow our teachers to do this.
Great.
And that's
so-
all budgeted for as part of the
Right.
curriculum review
Yep.
cycle.
Perfect, thank you. So if there is that opportunity to put a sub in or something like that, to be
Yep.
able to have them spend some time writing.
Correct.
Perfect.
Yeah, we're pretty careful about that, making sure that it applies to our, sorry, Kelly, it applies to our current review courses.
And I know Jen already mentioned this too, but part of the challenge and the confinements of Project Lead the Way is the extensive professional development that's required. And it's very expensive, and you're not allowed to teach the course unless you have a teacher that is trained. And so then that's part of the savings that we will ultimately see.
And I'm familiar with Project Lead the Way, and I agree that there are some restrictions to it, but I also know that it is has a very good reputation as far as will this impact, like when our students with transcripts or with anything, having that we finish Project Lead the Way, like look good when they're applying to colleges or anything? Is there any loss there?
I'm gonna have to say no, because we are not able to give them what we are hearing that they need to be successful at the next stages. So that is part of the motivation behind this, is to make sure that they are ready and able to then move into whatever path they are,
Great.
desiring to do.
I think your next slide actually addressed some of
Oh.
those concerns too.
Okay, and I just.
So even our students that are taking the Project Lead the Way courses, students that get accepted into a four-year school and pursue that engineering path, taking those Project Lead the Way courses doesn't really excuse them from any of those prerequisites. They have to still take the engineering courses at the collegiate level.
Perfect, so it's not like, hey, oh, I see you took project, they did that.
No, yeah, it doesn't, there's no financial savings for families really
Great.
at the collegiate level.
We changed the AP, we added an AP for, was that computer or engineering? Does that feed into any of this that you're
We
looking at?
added an honors computer science course last year for that current, and we are still in the review process, which we can talk about at the end. Looking at what else we could add. Computer science, we're working on that.
Excellent, and if we have junior high stuff right before ninth grade that feeds
Mhm.
into any of this that we're gonna.
Yep.
Thank you all.
I think you were talking more, not about like the financial impact, but like the perception of Project Lead the Way.
Right, just the idea, just like an AP class might
Is it-
build a stronger transcript, would have Project Lead the Way when I'm going to, Carnegie Mellon to try to get in or something like that, but you're saying that it does not, it's more the skills that they can talk about that they have, or
Yep.
than having Project Lead the Way. Thank you, though.
I had a question if we're moving in this path, which I'm not opposed to. But we definitely want to, and I'm just trying to understand how would we include the special education staff to ensure that that instruction that's being created is gonna be able to be differentiated, or, because like a lot of times the curriculum that, one of the packages we exist, have it already internally in it that they have at different opportunities, different reading levels. How is that gonna be accounted for with the teacher made curriculum?
So that is one of the things that we want to be able to open the doors for more students to be involved in this. And so taking that into account and making it more attractive for all students to enter those courses. But also looking and backtracking to the 7th and 8th grade, making sure that the interest is there, the understanding of what is involved in taking those courses is known by the students so that they can get in there. But the teachers are, well aware and trained as to what is necessary to make sure that all students are capable of accessing these courses.
Is special education personnel gonna be involved in any of the development or review?
Right now, due to the technical nature of it, we want to kind of get through the transition between the topics and skills in Project Lead the Way into the curriculum document, but we always have collaboration with our special education teachers. The beginnings of it probably won't, only just because of the technical nature of it, but the instruction part of it, always.
These courses look super interesting. Like really interesting.
Okay, so just before we go to the next slide, okay, it's okay. That's all right.
It's back.
This is the transition from Project Lead the Way to our teacher created courses, which again, the overall gist and vibe remains the same. but the flexibility and the attractiveness for all students is what we're trying to increase. The next slide is simply name changes and are not changes to any of the inherent content. So instead of just seventh grade, technology education, we would want to call that Tech Systems 1 and then Tech Systems 2. That way, making it a logical sequence of learning. Ninth grade technology and innovation would replace Tech Systems 1. That is to make it more understanding and attractive for all students in ninth grade to get that interest. And then changing materials manufacturing, that is a little ambiguous as to what that involves. So we would change that to fine woodworking 1 through 3.
Is there gonna be any assessments of this? Like, are we gonna be reaching out to former students, like, after they go through it to say, did this prepare you for, like, how are we going to assess?
So I do think that that is already in place and part of the initial process. I know that Mr. Mershak has spoken to students who have exited our Project Lead the Way sequence. And then he has been extensive with his questions as to, what was good, what needs to be adjusted. I don't know if you want to speak a little bit to that.
Yeah, almost every student I've had, excuse me, my allergies are horrendous right now. Every student that I've had that has actually gone forward with some kind of an engineering degree has come back. And I'm always excited to see, what did we do that really helped? And the biggest thing that they always bring back is just CAD. CAD work, having the opportunity to already know the software and the platform gives them a major step in front of their peers. Because then they can focus on the actual new learnings that they're getting from the professors rather than trying to learn a brand new software and doing that simultaneously. So that was the major purpose of bringing in that CAD for engineering course, in which we could cover several platforms now, and then that will be out of the way and they'll be very prepared when they get to those.
So that's something you plan to continue, like, ongoing, which is, hey, we created this new curriculum, what works, what's not working for you, like, what did you find useful to kind of tweak it as it goes along, right? Because it's kind of like a ship, until you put the water, you don't know where there might be holes, it
Right.
could be perfect, but.
So, not to speak out of place, but another purpose for having an in-house curriculum for engineering specifically is when we get that feedback from the students who are actually pursuing engineering degrees, we now have the ability to adjust our projects to cater to the newer needs of the student.
I think that's one of the flexibilities that I think is really good, but it's just, again, when it's teacher made, sometimes we've got to figure things out, it's a new thing.
Tracy, you have a question?
Yeah, maybe this is for you, Dr. Reinhammer, but help me understand, like, how does the woodworking fit in with like the tech education? Maybe I'm just like categorically thinking of that the wrong way. Something tech and education and woodworking doesn't naturally fit for me, but.
I think that was the original tech ed, to be perfectly
Okay.
honest with you. And now we have, over the years, expanded that to be in the broadest sense of what a student outside of, a typical core curriculum would
Okay.
require.
Okay.
Used to be shop, then it became.
That's a good call.
I was shop and tech ed, and now we expanded with tech ed.
Okay, but then something exciting that would be an additional thing to our course selection would be the addition of a STEM guitar building minor course.
So is that why you brought the guitar? I thought you were gonna play a song for us. I was all excited.
There's a camera and it makes me nervous.
So students would take this minor course and would basically pull together real world STEM opportunity where they would use things that I don't know how to use, like a CNC router and laser engraver, and create their own guitar. So I'm gonna let Mr. Mershak talk a little bit more about this.
I will take the class.
I'm gonna
This
stand
is
up.
pretty cool.
Was this actually built, like, is this an actual, like, you built this guitar?
Even better, a student built this guitar.
Wow.
And even better than that, a Springford student built
Put
this.
that on camera, that is.
Yeah.
incredible.
What is it
It's right
called?
there,
A
the
guitar
the
builder.
builder. It's a luthier.
That is, wow, that is incredible.
So I have a passion for guitars and I have a passion for woodworking, and that's where this class has kind of come from. And it's not just me making this. There's all sorts of different STEM guitar institutes out there. A ton of our neighboring school districts already have programs. Penn Ridge is probably the biggest one, if you've heard of theirs. But this is a student that I've had several times now. His name is John Starcevic.
He was one of my Cub Scouts.
He's a fantastic kid,
I taught him at.
good athlete. Oh, that's where he learned how to, he actually whittled this. You actually, he whittled this with a pocket, not at school though, not at school, outside. So,
That's incredible.
I have probably built about 40 guitars with students in the past 5 years. I started when I was at Souderton. And then I brought a few items that I had left over to Springford, and 4 years ago, when John was a ninth grader, I said, hey guys, I have 8 kits. Does anybody want to build a guitar after school? And it was kind of I wanted to have some fun, but 2, I wanted to see what kids who had never had wood shop could do and handle. And I think 7 of the 8 kids had never had wood shop before, and they were able to successfully, from scratch, build this guitar. We start with raw lumber. We don't buy anything that's made of wood. So the only things that are purchased are the hardware, pieces of metal. It's a fully functioning, fully working electric guitar. In fact, last year, prove it. Maybe 2 days before I can. That's as much as we can have. There's no straps, so I can't play it. But anyway, this is actually just a smoke shield as the project. The real class is STEM. And the goal, and there's no prerequisites set for this class. I don't really want to just get wood shop kids. Again, I'm sure they'll take it. I want to get a whole new grouping of kids coming into the tech ed program and kind of capture them with this smoke shield. It's a really cool project, but we have a CNC router that's it's not quite commercial level, but it's as close as you can get to it. We have a very high-end laser engraver as well, so we're using automation and machining. And then hopefully this drives them to, 1, love music, get passionate about woodworking, realize their potential, but also it gets them into the program. So now I can say, hey, you were really good at the CAD part. Why don't you take CAD for engineering? And why don't you get into the honors engineering course? And why don't you go take the mechanical course next? We're going to make some go-karts in that class, and you're going to be able to get into the mechanics of that. So it's kind of a opening to meeting new kids.
That's great.
Which I think is a really cool thing.
And I just want to reiterate kind of, because you're using the term smoke shield, that you're saying it, what is true, but it's even more important than that. It reinforces like taking math concepts that people may not want to understand and do math, but when they have to do it in a real world incentivizing situation, a lot of times it helps kids connect the concepts. It allows them to actually make more progress in reading areas because they're reading directions. They're having to follow executive function skills. They're having to do things in a very specific order. Math, I mean, the idea that, because again, it's great that they get a guitar at the end, but all the underlying skills that go into building that all help kids, and the brain, and the research talks about, transfer that information and solidify and actually allow kids to make greater growth in other areas. So I think it's a great idea. I love it.
STEAM.
Appreciate you
There.
saying that. Yes. Our focus and our team has really been exactly that, providing kids more innovative opportunities, really focusing in on what kids want to do, and also then assimilating all of the skills that they've gathered K-8, and then leading into high school and college or their career beyond. So
That's
thank
really
you.
cool.
And thank you to the team for working through all of this. I really appreciate the efforts that they've started so far. What we will do is bring this piece to the board, because this would have to be board approved, this component of it. The other items actually won't, so Dr. Edwards will reflect that in the course book. So we'll talk about that in January. That information will be in there, so those courses will be reflected upon that. So I appreciate all the work.
And I love the research that went into it's all fantastic. I love it.
Before we move on to anything else, do you have any questions? I'd said to Jake and to Kelly that they could leave after their part because their days are long, they start early, and they're here a lot.
We may just want to see the guitars and have some.
But we can always have a like jam out session on another year, so.
Maybe after next year.
Really cool. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so the next topic that we have is personal finance. Thank you guys. I love this. Really favorite one. Just as a reminder, really, of anything, the beginning of the class of 2040, all of our students will take a half credit personal finance course. This information is related to the Act 35 of 2023. This year, we're focusing on revising our curriculum, We do have some professional development with the MCIU. I just found out today that got modified. So we were going to go for 3 full days with job like peers. It looks like it's going to be a half day, just coming up to the end of next week. So we'll work through that. But I have 2 of our teachers going with me. It's going to be on Zoom now, but we'll work through that. We'll obviously also communicate to families during course selection because this impacts the 8th graders. They'll be going into 9th grade next year. I do have 2 links here. I'm just gonna try to pull over here. I might have to.
And most students will take this in 9th grade.
Yes, most students will take this in 9th grade. So what we'll offer, let me just pull it over here. I want to show you where this information, we won't have to read all of the, obviously, but this is where it came from the, back in 2023. But inside PDE's website, they've also created the updated resources based on the standards. So these are the areas, most of these are overlapping with the course we currently offer. So it's a full 1 credit course that we offer. We're going to move that from a full credit to a half credit so that we can obviously support more students. But looking at personal finance fundamentals, income, spending, saving and investing, risk and insurance, and credit are the main topics. And one of the things that PDE has also provided, and I've noticed they keep updating different resources, almost like monthly, I would say, but there's different information here. I've gone through all of this because there's specific guidance that we need to look at, the introduction definition and so forth, the standards that I mentioned. And then this is the area that they keep building out to show us some more resources. They did say they're going to provide us more content. Many school districts obviously have had personal finance in their course books, but because it's a requirement, PDE is expected to provide us additional resources. We did add in budget money in order to be able to purchase anything. Based on speaking to our teachers, it doesn't look like we'll have to purchase a whole lot because it's here and then obviously the resources they had. I will be working with them, probably bringing back more information related to any resource come February or so. But I wanted to just show you where all that was.
Two questions. One, when you go back to, it said like spending and spending, is budget management a part of one of those categories?
Yes, so all of this is like related to your individual spending, kind of
Okay.
budget planning. Some of the other topics in there include that we didn't in the past have like wills and those personal things that, you know, power of attorney, those types of
Yeah,
things
yeah.
that are not typically in a high school personal finance course. This is just the main topics, this whole document, and I have it linked here, but these are all the standards. They're actually addressed K through 12. Most of those are things that we do in math or social studies, FCS, but then in high school, they're required for this particular course. So all of these things like financial services, understanding what that looks like, all of those things. Again, we have a lot of kids that take this course, but now all of our students will be beginning to take this course.
So the second question, you said like there's a 1 credit course now and then it'll be half a credit. So that means that 1 credit course goes away and just everyone has the half a credit
That
and
is
that's the
correct.
option.
That is the option. We do have another finance course that would be more of a business finance rather than personal finance. And we have accounting. We have other courses that
Yeah.
continue beyond this personal finance. So if students had, this is intended to obviously help students as they're launching into adulthood, what are their personal responsibilities? If students have an interest in other parts of the business department, they'll still have those options as well. You're welcome. Okay, let me go back over here. So I think Dr. Wright was asking, most students will take it in that 9th grade year. It will be offered to students in 10, 12 if they need it. If they didn't take it in our school because they came as a 10th grader, if they had their schedule precluding them from being able to fit it in their schedule in 9th grade, lots of different reasons, but most of the students will take it in 9th grade beginning next year. Okay. The other item I have here are just some updated naming of courses for our high school. There are 4 courses, just to be a little more clear about what students will be taking and that sequence. So the ceramics minor is being renamed to 3D ceramics and sculpture minor 1. Ceramics major is renamed to 3D ceramics sculpture major 1. There was jewelry and minor, we're renaming it to 3D ceramics and sculpture minor 2. Again, it's more about that sequence of what students will be doing. And then advanced ceramics is being renamed to 3D ceramics and sculpture major 2. Really just again, for students to be able to understand what they're doing. This will be reflected in the course book as well. So students would know what they could take throughout their years in high school. I did have a question. Someone asked about how many students this impacts right now. I did look this up. We have 124 students in these 4 different courses across the year. So that's about how many students that take it. Looking at the cap size, the sections that are running aren't max. So if it did draw in more students, we would be able to still run that number of sections for definition. I always say that, we talk about this all the time. Anytime we have interest for students, we still have the same number of customers. So we always have to balance what we're offering to make sure that students have what they need and also not expand it beyond anything that we can't have the capacity to support.
All the courses tonight just seem super interesting.
You want to audit?
I feel like I would like, between this and all those technology, really cool stuff.
So then, I'm gonna turn it over to Dr. Mary for this next part, looking at our full day kindergarten capabilities.
There we go.
We'll start there, maybe?
Thank you.
This is great.
As we have been working and preparing our plans for the next several years, we in discussions wanted to circle back to the conversations that we're having about full day kindergarten to make sure that we're understanding really the why behind looking at this. What's really important about this, the decisions as we're making core capital planning in our building is that we're letting the education drive those decisions, that it's not facilities and then coming back afterwards and saying, oh, by the way, let's do this. So it's really making sure that you as a committee understand where we're coming from, what is that why, and why that needs to be important. So one of the things that we, last year we presented on full day kindergarten, and talked a little bit about, I would say 30,000-foot view of where we were. Our goal here is to develop a comprehensive report by about March on full day kindergarten. And what we're gonna do tonight is preview some of the information we have, but then share with you what our plan is to have in that report so that you as a committee can give us feedback while we're working on it. So by the time we get to March and this entire comprehensive plan, comprehensive look at full day kindergarten is completed, that you feel like your questions have been answered, but more so you had input into what goes into this report. So look at it through that lens. If there's something different you want us to do, let us know now so we can put that in the report.
And I just think we want to be clear that we're not talking about the budgetary aspect. of it
Correct.
today.
Right.
This is,
This
that's.
correct.
a-
100%.
Okay, I just want to make sure people listening
No, I appreciate that. So the first aspect that I want to talk about that's part of this report is some of the trend in the national research. And I know we did present on some of this. But one of the trends that we're looking at are certainly academic gains. What does that look like? And when I presented back in 2023, what we did talk about was how some of those academic gains are showing kind of controversial data as to whether or not it has long-term gains. But the challenge with that, the data that's being showed is kind of there's this fade out effect, which means that you see short-term gains in kindergarten, first grade, but by the time they get to third grade, some of that levels out. The concern with that research, however, is that you're using the same metric that you're studying over time, but when you increase kindergarten, you're not necessarily adding more reading. You're not necessarily adding more math time. The schedule includes additional information, additional time for win period. That's the what I need period. You have a lot more time for specials. You have time for recess. You have time for those other aspects, which is not always measurable. So when you're looking at some of this data, there definitely is research that shows the support of academic gains, math and reading. But that's where I think that you're going to see some of that conflicting information. A lot of the research is absolutely focusing on the positive gains from social emotional skills. Skills such as self-regulation. Again, something like that is difficult to measure if you're not, we don't have an academic assessment for that. Your pro-social and cooperative behavior, problem solving, the reduction of negative behaviors, the self-confidence, improved attendance, and those executive functioning skills is really where that national research is showing that information is, it's really being effective as far as full day kindergarten. So all this to say is don't always necessarily focus just on the 2 data points that we tend to have, math and reading. Students are going to get science and social studies, which there's no standardized test. It's third grade that will measure that. So those are other aspects just keeping in mind as you're looking at the national research. So one of the things we did do is look at the districts as a whole. And what does Pennsylvania look like? So as of right now, 475 out of the Pennsylvania's 500 districts do have full day kindergarten. So it's up to 92% now.
It was 85%
It
4
was.
years ago.
It was.
That's
So
that's
So if you can go to the next slide. When we look at Montgomery County, this is where we fall. These are the Montgomery County schools, and this is a comparison of full day kindergarten to half day kindergarten in every district in Montgomery County.
Except us.
Has full day kindergarten,
That's profound.
so. So I also wanted to look a little bit at some data points, and our report is going to include a lot more data points than this, but these are just two initial data points that we're looking at this year. As you know, we're working with a program called FastBridge, which gives us our benchmarking assessment in the beginning of the year. This chart that you have here, this is based on the 2025 fall benchmark assessments, and what this is showing you is first graders. It's showing you a comparison of our students who attended half-day kindergarten in Springford on the left side. And on the right side are students who did not attend half-day or who did not attend kindergarten in Springford. And what this is showing you for our English, our reading data for, it's called FastBridge Early Reading Composition Data, is that students in first grade who are new to us are outperforming the students who were with us in kindergarten. When you look a little bit deeper in that, you pull that back, 92% of those students attended a program that had full day kindergarten.
Yeah.
Now, there is an assumption being made here. I can't say with 100% certainty that that 92% of students attended a full day program. I can tell you that they attended a program with full day kindergarten. So there's a bit of an assumption that's being made. So I just want to be transparent with that. But we are seeing, as far as reading goes, at least at this is one data point, that our students who are new to us are outperforming the students that we had for half day kindergarten last year. We have data for math. We don't see as drastic of a change. We do see that students, this is comparing our early math composition data, that our those students who are coming new to us are outperforming our students by only 0.6%, so a tiny bit compared to, I believe it was the 10.5 on the previous slide for reading. So what we're not seeing is our students attending and I want to be really clear, this is not in any way, shape, or form attributed to the performance that our teachers are doing. So I just want to be clear. I just want to be really clear with that the parallel I'm drawing here is the fact that we have students who have the opportunity to attend a full day program versus students that are attending a half day program. So I just want to be really clear. I don't want anybody to think that in any way, shape, or form that we are blaming our teachers, because our teachers are doing a phenomenal job with the time they have.
Absolutely. I think that's the critical, with the time they have.
With
I
the
think
time that
that's
they have.
the issue, not the
Absolutely.
teaching. Because think about it, for having half the time for what the performance is, that's an impressive
Yes.
feat.
So by just timing alone, again, part of this feasibility study is looking at what is this why? This why is that we need more time with our students. We need more time to be able to do more with them. So that's really important aspect here.
At what point in first grade did you pull that data? It was like at the end of first grade?
So
Was
this
it
is
like-
actually 2025, so it's this year's data, so it was the beginning fall data. So it's
Okay,
data that just occurred.
I'm super curious, and I only say this, like, this is also like one data point, like, I know both my kids, like, one did the pre-K and one was during COVID, so they didn't, but like, at least and I heard this from some of the teachers too, like, a lot of them start reading better in the second half of the year.
Sure.
So like, there's a number of first graders, at least qualitatively, that I was hearing, like, they don't do as well, like, the first half, but like, once you get to the second half, folks
100%.
start.
And that's also,
Big.
some of it has to do with age, some of it has to do, just maturity.
Maturity,
Also,
yeah.
some of it has to do with the fact that now they're in school for a full day.
Right.
And so I think that that's part of that aspect. So when you look at some of the data and they say it starts to level out, there is a
Yeah.
truth to that, because now the students are in, full day programs. But what I can say is that our early data starting off as of today, as of right now, is showing a disparity in that.
But what you're not seeing is maybe all the extra effort teachers are putting in to
100%.
get them to level out. Cause I know there's
100%.
target time for reading with like the different levels and
Yes.
things like that, so that's.
Yes. So, and that's why I want to be really clear, just to say it again, because I don't want this in any way to come off that they are doing the absolute best they can with the time they have. Imagine what they can do with
And
more
you're
time.
talking about teachers who can have upwards of 50 students a day,
Yes.
55-year-old, like 5-year-olds, right?
It's better.
Yes.
Big difference in, between a 5-year-old and an
Correct.
8-year-old. It's like herding cats, right? So and I think of this, I had the experience within 1 year of my older two, we were in Lower Moreland. We had all day. And it was, yeah, I actually, my youngest is only a year younger, so when I could volunteer, they had a different program, I could bring him and he would sit there and do the work with the kids because I was volunteering in the classroom. And then we moved here and he had half day. Absolutely adored his teacher. I love her so much. And it was interesting because for him, having pretend kindergarten for, a couple days a month, he would get on the bus, hang up his coat, do something, go outside, maybe have a snack and then come home. Like it was such a it was a different kind of day. And that's where like my passion for this is in the more letting that teacher have that time so that they can, it's not, like you said, not about math and reading at that early. It's getting the love for school,
Yes.
right? It's laying that platform of, I know what's going on and I'm part of this big community and academically, I don't think you're gonna see that impact.
And I
right
think
then.
that's exactly my point, is that
Yeah.
it's not only academic that you see it, it's the social emotional piece, it's
Absolutely.
behavioral, it's executive functioning, and it's the lift that also our teachers do to meet the students where they are. And in a minute, you're gonna see what's part of the study that will also include that we have to have some work to do to look at what model would be the best if we were to go in this direction. To make sure that it's not, we don't want just kindergarten to be just more time or
Right.
just the new first grade, that doesn't
Right.
work. So that's part of what this study would include.
I do want to add one more additional thing that we haven't talked about. That is one of the reasons that is a major benefit from my opinion on the full day kindergarten, is it allows kids who may have learning differences to be identified at an earlier rate. Because the teachers have more time to work with
Yes.
them, offer more strategies, and so it leads to identification early, and especially in reading and math. The earlier that there's identification for kids, the greater, the service starts, the greater the positive outlook. So again, and that's something I don't know if you can't probably capture in this data.
Well, I have a couple of
Oh, okay.
interesting pieces in here.
Sorry, we're just excited.
So the other thing we did was reach out to some of the districts who did move in this direction to get some of their feedback of what they saw. I'm not gonna read all of these data points, and I did just list them as District 1, 2, 3, and 4, but these are local districts that have moved in the last several years. The feedback I got was anywhere from, specific math or reading data, such as an increase of 8 RIT points, in math in the first year and 10 in reading. But you'll also see here that we have some data like 18.3% fewer students were referred to occupational therapy screenings during the first year of full day kindergarten. That is, that's a huge impact. 130 students were brought back from a charter school, resulting in a revenue of $2.3 million. You'll see here that we had certainly some academic data such as 67 to 80% of students were reaching benchmark. But some anecdotal such as they witnessed fewer students needing school counselor support in the first year of full day kindergarten implementation. We have the third district we looked at. What I love that's in this is a lot more anecdotal information, such as seeing students having greater stamina, more time for the skills practice, the exploratory play, increasing the socialization aspect of it. So you're seeing a lot more, this particular district really focused on the power of purposeful play for students, and where the purposeful play is a teacher facilitated opportunity where students are playing and interacting, where students have choice and curiosity and the opportunity to engage and, peer mediate with each other and make those mistakes and learn from them. Those are those skills that an academic test is not going to necessarily measure. But we also see things such as the fine motor skills and activities that are also on there. So going to then the study. So what you're gonna see here is this is a screenshot of the table of contents of this study that we've started to develop. And what I wanted to do is just open up the conversation here to make sure that we're including everything that you'd like to see in here. This is not done, so it's definitely working draft here. But the idea is that we would start off with the national research. What is national research showing regarding the academic, social, emotional, executive functioning, but then, some of that local district that I kind of gave you a sneak preview of today. Then going into the data analysis, you saw the early benchmark data, which is what I just talked about, but then looking for some additional data points. I have to give a shout out to Jerry Rogers, who's looking at tracking back from 8th grade he's seen trends in eighth grade that have been impactful based on whether or not the student had full day kindergarten or not. So our principals are doing a really great job of trying to dig in there, pull back, the pedals to see what is it really showing us. When we did the presentation back, last year, we did some feedback. We did see, our administrative staff holistically supported. We saw some of our teachers supporting that, as well as wanting to get additional perceptions from a reading specialist, those who are working with moving the mountains to make sure that all of our kids are successful. But then also looking at, again, some of those non-measured areas. So what are the perceived impacts on executive functioning, social emotional, and getting the reading specialists and MTSS coordinators giving some feedback based on what they're seeing. That would then go into the rationale, the educational rationale, which would then also tie into what would our program design be, because we want that to be, again, thought about ahead of time. Once we've identified those areas and what our anticipated impact, then we would be looking at an implementation plan. So what does it mean for budget? What does it mean for staffing, and how do we plan for that? I know Dr. Scanlon has said this several times. We can do whatever we want if we plan,
Right.
the likelihood of this happening next year it's not gonna happen.
Yeah.
That's okay. But if the committee is, or if the board is really looking at this as a priority, if we can back map this and see how long does it take us to get to where we want to be, then we can have a feasibility plan to get us there. But what I think is really important is that we're using the educational rationale to drive that forward. That we're making sure that as we're looking at our facilities, the facilities are reflective of what we need to make that successful.
Beautiful.
So I want to pause there and ask just, what are we missing in this report? Because like I said, I don't want to get to March and then you'd be like, oh, I wish you included this.
So, and I don't know if this is appropriate, and I'm just thinking kind of off the top, but one of the things, and we're not talking budget, but there is gonna be a budgetary impact. And obviously, I think and I don't know to what extent it is possible or, good idea, but what about reaching out to get some feedback from the community as well?
Mhm.
And the reason for that is because, obviously, anything that might have a budgetary impact, if the community has been consulted and involved and it has a buy-in to it and wants it, and we as board members are listening to the community, I think that also goes into the analysis.
Well, budgetary impact doesn't always mean I agree with you on community input, but I just want to make sure like there's not a correlation between a budgetary impact and a tax increase, because that's not the case necessarily.
That may not be true, but I'm just saying
Yeah.
it will have an impact on the budget, maybe not a tax increase, but it
Yeah.
will be in a situation that whatever the word.
Community support.
And
Yeah.
it's tricky because when I have been out in the community, like community day, or whatever, a lot of young parents
Yeah, they are.
want to talk about this, but they are not familiar with the school board or
No.
committee, or it is so far away from their mind, except, someone with this little baby in a carriage is like, oh yeah, fast forward 5 years or 4 years. And I went all day kindergarten, and those are, how do we get in front of that, audience of maybe they want half day, I don't know. But that's that conversation of, I think it's fantastic. I have no stake in this game, right? My kid, it's long gone, but I would love to hear from, how do we get in front of those, community members who aren't really thinking about the school board?
We've actually started to, we've brief questionnaire, and we've been pushing out every week information about upcoming community meeting in November, which is an opportunity to get some questions and answers. And from those surveys, we're getting questions from people. So we're actually developing the presentation to help address the questions in the presentation, and then do breakouts. Tomorrow night, we're going to be talking at the finance committee meeting. You will see reference to the timeline of this kindergarten study and reference to the middle school study we're going to hear about in just a minute. As part of the finance committee, we're putting it all in one chart because these things are all connected.
Sure.
And there will be a financial piece to it. There'll be an operational piece to it. We got to tease out some of the charter school pieces. I think we're going to get charter school kids back, and we'll put some estimates in there where it's actually going to bring back revenue, help offset some of those costs. We just got October 1st is our official enrollment day, so we're just starting to dig into those numbers now. But that is all part of this whole process. But as Kelly said, we want the curriculum and the educational components to decide. There's certain checkpoints that we have to know before we go and design a building Are we doing full day K or not? Because
Right.
that makes a difference. Are we gonna need, what's the middle school model gonna look like? That's gonna make a difference when we get to that middle school piece. And is the board gonna go to a 6-8 middle school or not? Like, so you'll see clearly in that timeline, there are some checkpoints along the way that are critical decisions we gotta know before we can move
Yeah,
on.
where are we going? How will we get there?
You don't wanna do
What's
things,
the-
you don't wanna build twice.
Right, that's
You don't wanna come back and say, oh my gosh, we could have.
right.
Do it once, build what you want, and then just follow the plan, be patient.
Thank you. My feedback on what I see here is that, I love all the research and everything that you're doing and looking at everything that you presented about it. But when I look at, every district within Montgomery County and 475 out of 500 in Pennsylvania, we have to assume that they already did their research to come to this conclusion. So that the research is out there, and it's been said, it's obviously not a fad, and I would like to think that those districts are very well-resourced also that did their research. So I would say, I would like to make sure that your energy really is gather that information, but is more directed on really what Dr. Scanlon was saying, is like, what would this look like for us? Because I feel pretty confident from this, and I'm a researcher also, that in education, that we're gonna find that everything is going to point that this would be toward this being beneficial. It's just the feasibility, and first, before even feasibility, it's what it would look like. So
Mhm.
please don't get too hung
Makes you
up
feel
on.
bad, the majority of the research part is done.
Yeah,
So, but it's now, it's like, what does it look like here and how do we make it happen? So
right.
In the,
I appreciate that though.
in the educational design, I'm assuming that you've looped in our beloved kindergarten teachers.
So that's our next step.
Okay.
So our, I want to say we were thinking January committee meetings that we talked about. So Brianna's going to be leading that, and talking with building principals, reading specialists, kindergarten teachers, but to actually plan out what would our kindergarten designs look like, where does purposeful play come in? And that's going to be kind of the next phase that's going to be shared here. So that was part of the plan. So
Thank
we're
you.
really excited for Brianna to be taking the lead with that.
Maybe I'd like to piggyback on what Dr. Wright said. So like, I'm sure you'll have like enough in the national/state or whatever the local research. I guess my question would be like, why did we only use such a short period of time, if I'm reading this correctly, in the piece here around the data analysis for this year? Like, are we going to, or working on go back a couple years? Because the comment that you made that the research is mixed and it's like after like third grade, some of it levels off, and like maybe that looks different at a state or a national level, but like, will we go back and have a couple years worth of data versus just this short
Yes.
period?
Yeah, my plan is to get some more longitudinal data, so you're not just looking at one single data point, so we can look at longer trends.
When does the window close as far as when you are done accepting feedback and things to include in the report?
I'll take feedback any point.
Yeah, that will
earlier
be
than-
ongoing up to and including the second meeting.
Okay.
Like I'll send
Well,
something.
I just know it takes time to compile what you need, so it'd be good for everyone to understand how much thought they should put into this now, in the interest of time on this.
Anything that's sooner just gives me more time to collect it and to work on it, but, I never want to limit anybody, so certainly sooner the better, but.
We talked about, and which I'll get into the middle school model in a minute, but we talked about giving an update to this committee again in January, and then having this final study report available to all board members, and I don't know how he's planning to present it community-wide, but providing that information in March. That way, as you're making decisions, you have all of this information.
Yeah, and to Dr. Wright's point, all of these other districts have done this research, really be willing to share their findings.
But what makes it very unique in Springford is you have also a middle school piece as part of it.
Yeah.
A lot of districts that did full day K, they focus only on full day K. This is part one of another piece,
Right, that's too.
which is also part of another piece of all the transitions that we have. The board has said they want to reduce the transitions. So while we're doing that, you have an opportunity here to let the educational research drive some really good decisions for kids before you go and make those changes.
And this is long term. This is strategy, right? We're looking at this to say the what if,
Yep.
and I think that's the part that the community needs to understand. This is an opportunity for us to say what if. And where I know some of the decisions in the past were made based on, okay, we have a need and we have a building, we can make this work. Totally understand. We're at a place now where we go, okay, we know that that middle school model would benefit kids, you know, bringing those fifth graders back where they, most districts would want them, right? In still the elementary. Yeah, sorry, I'm blowing your bubble. But that really, I mean, it's a concept that we are analyzing. We are building a potential map for. We're not writing anything in stone yet, but it's really giving that chance to say, how do we make this the district even better? Using what we have, maybe adding a little more to it, but really, I think it's a unique opportunity to take this perspective. So I'm excited.
So what I did was, I'm working with the building principals that are at the middle level and Dr. Reinheimer, and then some of our district employees as well. We will continue to build those groups out, but I just wanted to frame the discussion as a starting point. Over the course of the year, we'll be gathering information from peer-reviewed research. Like Dr. Murray said, we've done a lot of that already. Focus groups to create a full report to shape the future of what a Spring-Ford Middle School would look like. So thinking about not making the assumption it's already happened, but what would a Spring-Ford Middle School look like? We always like working definitions. So what does that even mean as a middle school model? We're considering the age of students ages 10 to 14. So when you're thinking about that age, that's where the research pulled in. It'll help shape the context of the research and that scope of the schools we've examined. So the report overall, and I'll show you a similar thing that Dr. Murray did as far as the table of contents, that's a draft right now, but it'll include an executive summary, the literature review, core components of what a middle school model will look like, which you were just talking a little bit about, data analysis, obviously stakeholder feedback, that it will include mostly students. We want to include students and teachers in that. Obviously, I heard earlier in the conversation kind of getting families in, but we really do believe that middle schoolers could really provide their own feedback on what they would want if they could look back in time to provide that. Obviously, we need to make sure that we're looking at financial and operational impact, and then ultimately recommendations for what that Spring-Ford Middle School model would be as an implementation. I'm not going to read all the slides to you just for time and sake, but understanding. So the team of I with me have looked at a lot of different research. One of the key components as a summary is that school stability matters, which I think without even having to read some of this, most of you would know that if you've worked with children, you have your own children, you know that school environments consistent over time helps make that predictable structure, which I think we were just talking about what your son was doing even as a little person. But sustained academic outcomes, look at that over time. So those disruptions, changing schools can interfere with that stability. And so we cited a couple of different sources that we found that overall theme there. The next piece is really looking at the instructional approach matters, which I think is also very key to our, whatever decisions we make, we want to make sure that we're really focusing on that interdisciplinary team-based approach. That includes teacher collaboration, that integrated curriculum, thinking about growing students at this age level, those longer class periods, much like the model we right now have at 5-6, there are longer chunks of periods of time. Doesn't mean it would be exactly that structure, but that, and also obviously supporting that sense of belonging during that critical time of adolescence. I didn't include a bunch of other things in here, which I will over time, but it's really helping teachers have that professional development of understanding what that adolescence period means. So we have obviously teachers who have had lots of experience with adolescents, but as we're looking at staffing over time, making sure that we continue that professional learning to be able to support that. I think is another key component. It's really kind of small, but I'll make sure that you have access to these. What I looked at was the transition years for each school district in Montgomery County. So looking at whether they transitioned in 5th grade, 6th grade, 7th grade, or 8th grade. And unfortunately for us, we're again, the only in this case, probably not in the best based on what I just shared with you. We have a transition obviously in 5th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade. And we're the only ones that do that.
And
So-
9th grade.
And then in 9th grade, I didn't look outside.
I know, but like, that's crazy.
But
This was only looking at Katie.
No, I
Yeah.
know, but like, that's crazy.
But really looking, what I did was again, that working definition, when we looked at what did that mean, there were districts that transitioned to that quote middle school like situation come 5th grade. Most are in 6th grade, some in 7th because they have a 7-8. And then obviously we have that 5, that's 7 and that 8th as well. So just again, we always ask and look at what our partners are doing, and this is what happens across Montgomery County. One of the other pieces that I did look at, and I don't know if it's as tightly relevant to the conversation we were having, but I wanted to make sure that we went back and looked at national scores. And one of the places that is consistent is the National Assessment of Educational Progress. And probably not surprising to any of you that the scores have dropped since COVID, and there are some rebounding. But looking at it here, basically from 2024, the NAEP fell 2 points on average for both 4th and 8th graders, sustaining that steady decline in the subject that predates COVID era, looking at some of that reading. And then math scores were unchanged from 2022, which was the last time that test was given. 4th graders rose 2 points, but remained below their performance in 2019. So I don't know if it's as tightly woven to what we are doing here, but again, it's a trend looking at how students perform across the country, because this assessment is given across the country in many different states. And then looking at this data, again, it's very small on the slide, so I apologize. What I tried to do was going back to that Montgomery County middle school data. This is just the data from 2024, because 2025 data was not publicly available at this point. But trends on the subject, schools consistently show higher proficiency in scores in ELA and math across all districts and grade levels. Trends in grade level, the most pronounced and consistent trend across the data is a decline in student proficiency as students move from higher middle school grades, particularly in math.
Yeah.
So looking at, basically that's countywide, looking at the trends that happen. But when we're looking at students who then have math proficiency going from a 5th to an 8th grade band, there were highs and lows extremes across the data sets. So districts with a 5th grade transition year exhibit a full range of performance anywhere from, it says 80%, with the highest performing ELA scores in 80% and math scores in the 70 and 80% range, to the lowest performing districts with scores below 40. As I mentioned earlier, the most common band is the transition, that 6th to 8th grade band. That was the most common, most frequently used middle school configuration in the data set. That mid-range performance, these districts are generally clustered in the high, mid to high proficiency average, scores between 60 and 75%. Proficient or advanced on PSSA is what it's referring to. And then math scores 40 to 60%. In the 7th grade, that's a sharp decline in math when it transitions into 7th grade, because the configuration shows the most dramatic drops in math proficiency from that 7 to 8. And there are mixed ELA results depending on different schools, different districts. The trends are mixed, some showing an increase with some showing a decrease. So again, another just simple data point. It's very hard to say, I could go back 10 years and look at all the different trends of the data, but I think what this points back to, again, is the consistency of schooling and the consistency of programming. I put this as a summary, but I took every district and kind of charted it out to see like how students went up and down over time. And I think it's really important that we really think about what our program we want for our students, which will be our next real step, is looking at, we had Jake here tonight looking at what our high school program would look at as tech ed. What would something 6-8 look like in music? 6-8 look in FCS, 6-8 would look in world language and so forth.
So Dr. Reddy, this data does or does not remove outliers?
It-
Outliers.
It does not. So it took every data set that we have in Montgomery County. So we have some very, very high performing districts in Montgomery County,
Right.
and then we have some lower performing based on state averages. And so that did not remove any of the outliers. It took the data set of Montgomery County.
And the data is directional, not correlated to actual school transitions, or we isolated that variable and we know that it's actually correlated to transitions.
What I did was I took it based on that, so it would be based on that transition. So I looked at just like what happens in 5th grade when you transition from 4th to 5th as your transition versus 5th to 6th versus or into 7th grade.
So there's statistical significance that the transitions are.
I can't say that because I didn't run statistics like that. What I did was just look at a general trend and analysis of that data. So that would be way different in statistical actual measures when you actually run statistics. It's just looking at it from a very narrative type standpoint, looking at it from that data point. And again, because there are obviously different students across the,
Yeah, you're not.
I can't.
comparing apples.
Exactly. I can't, and I didn't look at whether those districts had full day kindergarten or not. Like, I didn't get into that depth of the data. What I was able to do is just pull that information from PDE's website is how I got that and was able to sort it based on where their transitions happen.
Yeah, that's because we analyzed our own state data. We're still waiting for the school results to come in. we can look at those transition grade levels. We can look at fifth grade, which is the first grade level in a big school. Eighth grade is a standalone building. You see historically what kind of trends we're seeing. Compare that to any state trends as well.
So some of that you would layer on when you do your presentation in November?
Yeah, and I've started that with the information we have. It's not all out there yet. That's why I had 2024 on here. The 2025 has not been published yet.
Yeah, and some of those studies that were referenced, I know that Katie went through those pretty quickly. There's some pretty powerful studies about middle school research and the length of time students are in buildings. In fact, there was one study in there that just did a analysis of 393 studies. That's a whole meta-analysis, and basically came to the conclusion that the longer kids are in a building, the better you get to know the children,
Yeah.
better their test scores are.
And some of the same studies talked about K-8 schools, which I did put on the table because to us, that's not a feasible resource that we can be able to do. But again, it comes back to, we're looking at a K-5 model. And again, I will share all of the research on the executive summary when we get to it. I have a lot of that already crafted and ready to go. But what a lot of that has to do with what do we do when students leave one building to the next? And I think we do a really nice job of what we've done from 4 to 5. But looking at it when kids go from 5 to 6 to 6 to 7 to 7 to 8, what are we doing? And even that, so strengthening some of that, even if we didn't change our model, maybe looking at how we support students from one grade level to the next.
And Karen, I think that this kind of hits to your point that you were mentioning earlier, that we have a unique opportunity now. You know, we're in the position we are because we had to be so many years ago. We had fast growth. But now we're at an exciting point where we can be very strategic with what we do. And the decisions that we made can be done very purposefully, not because we're in the position where we have to. So I think it's an exciting time to be in the district. And this is really great information for us to be able to be very strategic with what we're doing and making sure that the choices that we're doing is for a purpose and a reason. Not suggesting they weren't in the past. But
Absolutely.
we don't have to make some big choices.
Well, and it gives us that time to put a plan together and really think about financial impact, like how, when you said, you know, if 100 and something kids come back to us out of charter schools, that money comes back to the district. And it allows us to kind of go, okay, if we need this much in the pot to be able to do this, it allows us to plan. And we're looking,
Strategize and prioritize.
that's exactly the long-term planning of putting money in the kitty
Yeah.
for kindergarten.
Yeah, the whole financial piece, it's a whole other aspect of all of this. But
Absolutely.
as you're looking at, I just sent some enrollment data to the board. And we're down 137 kids at the elementary level.
That's the biggest challenge.
So we have some teachers that we had budgeted for that we didn't need. They're still sitting in the budget.
Right.
So as we plan for additional teachers, you can roll some of that into designated fund balance and start building that each year so that when you open the buildings, you have them in the budget. You can't do it in 1 year.
Yeah.
That's why the
Right.
planning has to be over multiple.
Exactly.
But I also like the fact that what I'm hearing is it's not just building and transitions, it's also the instruction. Because I think that and looking at what other districts do, because this is not a criticism of Springford, it's all districts kind of have a discrepancy between math and reading, right? And no one's been able to, crack the nut on that one, but we can look at districts that are performing, and maybe it's like, instead of the traditional 45 minutes or whatever it is, we move to a 60-minute model during middle school because there's a higher need there. So this is the part of education I personally love, is the creative aspect of really being able to sit down and create a model that is, again, not just a super quick fix, which we'll just open a kindergarten or we'll just do this. It's a really holistic viewpoint of that different points. So I think this is amazing. And I love that you're reviewing all the different areas.
Whatever decision we make, I hope we make it because we believe that there'll be stronger, sustained academic performance. Like I care, I speak as member, I care about the financial impact and all those other things, but like, I don't care as much about everybody else is doing it because it's like everybody else has this thing. So like we should have this thing. It's more like, do we think we set our students up for better academic success in the long term? Then that's something that, me as one board member, I'm interested in pursuing.
I think we all are.
Yeah, I know. I don't want to speak for myself. I don't want to speak for everybody.
And I think of all of our kindergarten teachers who are teaching 50
Yeah.
five-year-olds
Yeah.
every
They're really
day.
fun.
That's, I can't
That's a lot.
even get my.
And I will say this too, as a parent and community, they also do a great outreach to parents to get them in the classroom to help support them. Like I was a kid
Absolutely.
right here, and I think that's a good thing. It also connects parents. They do a phenomenal job. I mean, everyone, the staff here is honestly top notch.
Or Dr. Hill.
Yeah, he's like,
He's like, ah.
he's like, I didn't even have anything on the PowerPoint tonight.
All this curriculum.
We just have a couple more slides.
Couple more things. I think what Mrs. Goldsmith just said is our next step will be to build out some teams. I know when Dr. Scanlon and Mrs. Leeson met with SFEA to kind of get a group of teachers involved, to making sure that we have the right people. We've already reached out to some of our department chairs to get some of their teams thinking about what this could look like. What I'd like us to be able to think about is exactly what you said, is thinking about program first, and let's build what we think would work. And then go back and say, okay, can we make this actually happen? Rather than the other way around. So obviously, this is just kind of a draft as far as the outline of table of contents. It'll evolve as we're going through some of the content, but really thinking about the executive summary, the core components of what an implemented middle school model would look like, going through some of that data and findings, and then obviously providing recommendations, some type of conclusion. I'll provide you all of the resources that we had, any survey questionnaires, things like that, that we send out. Before I move on to the other things, any questions, comments? Okay, more to come on that. Couple other things, just this is kind of an annual renewal that we need to do. This is the Title I Parent and Family Engagement newsletters. It will be coming out of Title I funding. So I will put it on the agenda for approval on the 27th. The Turnitin renewal is also another ongoing renewal. This is actually a, what's that?
Sorry,
Oh,
maybe to distract.
The new item in the sense that it's a renewal, but it is part of the new contracts because the timing will actually end on, I think it's January 10th, 2026. So this will be a 30-month contract, because what we're trying to do is get to all of our July renewals, because trying to budget in the middle of the year, it's like, what, we can get a quote in January to know what we're paying for the following year. So we are able to manage this, budget this, we plan for this. So I just wanted to get it better in alignment with our other renewals.
So again, candidly, I
Yeah.
was a no on this last year, and the two concerns I had was the fact of whether or not there was gonna be increase in discipline referrals based upon AI. So were there any type of discipline actions taken as a result of using Turnitin 2? Was there ever any ARs developed in regards to utilizing AI in discipline?
Dr. Reinheimer can probably answer the first question.
Okay.
Only she's been working with most of the teachers. There hasn't been anything that I've heard of based on the usage for students, anything different than we've had in the years past. And then, do you have anything else to add to that? Because I know you've worked directly with teachers.
Yeah, no, there hasn't been any more than a typical, student plagiarism stuff, but there's no increase in discipline referrals that would be significant.
And was there any AR regulations?
So there are, so we created ARs specifically for the teacher use and student use of AI. The whole focus of the both of those ARs is the idea that there needs to be human input, that basically not to follow any of it blindly.
Yeah.
So the teacher or the staff ARs have been released, have been shared. Those have been in place for well over a year now. The student ARs are, I would say, about 99% done.
Okay.
The only thing that's holding the student ARs up is the education piece. How are we going to teach all students? And just this summer, then there was also a release of a new requirement to include instruction for AI with students. So we're actually in good shape. We have a course that we were writing to be able to release that, but we're just trying to work out the details as to how that will come into play for students.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. That's great.
And the last item is an informational item. I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. Angelucci to explain.
Yeah, very quickly, just some information for you guys. On November 3rd, I'm going to be having a parent informational night here, from 5 to 7 PM. It's kind of an open house style, just, about our new iReady math program, K-4. We did something similar when we implemented the ELA program. So, same idea. I'll have our, iReady resources laid out here in district office. Parents can kind of come and go whenever they want to within that 2-hour window. I'll be here to answer questions. Dr. Doherty will also be here. I'll have a slide deck, just kind of on loop with information. And, it's just time to connect with parents. It's just another touch point, and they can ask questions and look through the resources. They're already seeing, the math homework coming home that's different than in previous years. They heard a little bit about it from teachers at back to school night. So it's just another opportunity to meet with them and answer questions.
Could you share that among, like, to the board members as well too?
I'll have this here, and the Miss Crew had it in the weekly update
Okay.
as well.
And I just wanted to do a really quick plug that I really appreciate the curriculum department doing this. this goes on kind of the coattails of what we've been doing over the last, I would say, 6 years of just curriculum transparency. Making sure that there's more information out there, people can see what we're doing, ask questions, there's more information than ever on our website, so again, that's just that curriculum transparency piece, so they've been doing a great job of that.
Yep, great.
All right, I believe there's no new business for technology. Sorry, Dr. Hill.
Crushed it tonight.
I yielded.
Let's see, I guess we move to board comment. Big board comment.
I'm very excited about this stuff. Very.
That's it.
You've had too much good stuff in the way.
Yeah,
Thank you.
As
Yeah,
always,
this was a long but very, very good, very
that you
exciting.
do.
yeah, I appreciate it.
With that, we move to public to be heard on agenda items. Or on any item.
Rachel at Upper Providence, I just want to say this is exciting for Springboard because, you know, I was one of those parents that did send my kid to private all day kindergarten and, they're doing phenomenal and they had throughout time. So this is a long time awaiting. I also think, just coming from a social work perspective, that it gives teachers an opportunity to understand who the families are that need more and the kids who need more, kind of piggybacking off of what Mrs. Goldsmith said, on a social emotional level and on a high risk level. So it's a fantastic idea. I can't wait to see it happen.
Thank you. Any other public comments? All right, move to adjourn.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.